cannot tell you how thrilled I am with myself for being on time. I'm literally bang on time today, and normally the midweek message, something holds me up. I nearly got held up with chasing my youngest son around the island trying to get my phone back, but I won. I had to give him and say he didn't have to do his homework today. The negotiations with teenagers, that's what it boiled down to today. Anyway, I am very excited to be here with you today to talk to any of you and speak to any of you and provide comfort to those of you who have perhaps lost someone that you loved very dearly. And I know what that feels like. I lost my mum in February 2017 after 11 years of Alzheimer's. She finally was taken by pneumonia just before her 75th birthday. Her birthday was a few days later. She actually died on her wedding anniversary, or her 40-something wedding anniversary. I've forgotten. Isn't that awful? I've forgotten what date it was. And I want to come in and share something that has provided an awful lot of comfort for me, and also provided so much comfort to those of my clients who I've worked, who have also come to me because they have been in a deep state of loss and grief, having lost someone as well. Now, I know that when you've lost a loved one, it can feel really hard to think that you're ever going to feel happy again, or to even experience momentary happiness. And the happiness that we're searching for in those times isn't necessarily the happiness that's the buzzing, the exciting, the like dancing on the tables happiness, the excited for the future. It's a softer, gentler element of happiness. And for me, you're feeling maybe something different, but for me it was about being able to find the contentment, the peace part of happiness. Because for me, happiness is so many different elements, but it was about how can I find a little bit of peace, a little bit of happiness with that peace feeling when I'm feeling so sad, when I've lost someone. So maybe I should start a little bit at the beginning. My mum was diagnosed with Alzheimer's in 2005, and my dad and my mum actually kept that a secret from me until 2006, because I was getting married in 2005. They didn't want to worry us. And it was in 2013 when I started having my own issues with my health, with burnout, juggling 2 small children, not sleeping, global team, etc., and seeing my dad struggling with my mum, whose Alzheimer's was getting worse and worse, that I ended up leaving my corporate career and taking some time out to reassess what it was that I really wanted to do, support my dad a bit, and also really look into Alzheimer's and understand a little bit more about it so that I could really focus on my health and a bit about prevention, because I didn't understand it, and what I wanted to do to look after myself. And that was when my journey into health really started. Holistic health, nutrition, sleep, movement, mental health, mind health, soul health, everything. And I started to open up to a whole new world that I had never ever seen before. And one of the first books I read was called The Secret. And in that it started to open up my mind around something completely different that I'd never really thought about. I was the world's biggest cynic. You know, it was my job to critique, to find fault, to find flaws in order to make sure that when we sent things live in the technology world, it was all perfect. So I would critique everything. I would be cynic. I would question everything. And there was a piece in the book, The Secret, that, and if you've read it, you may remember it. She talked about asking for signs. And it was this piece where she said, well, I'll look for a feather, a white feather. And in my mind, the bit that I remember is that she was obviously on some steps and a white feather came down. She said, well, if it's that hard, I'm going to ask for a sign, show me a white feather, and a white feather came down. And I was like, oh, isn't that interesting? So I opened my mind to the possibility that there was something bigger at play. And I wasn't really quite sold at that point. And then several things started to happen in terms of my life and my world. And in 2016, things started to fall apart with my mum dying. And actually, my mum died in 2016. I said 2017 earlier, didn't I? She died in 2016. And then some things with my health and some things with my marriage and things with my life all started to fall apart. And I was diagnosed with PTSD, depression, clinical depression, insomnia and eating disorders. And I really took some time to heal. And another one of the books that I picked off the shelf was The Universe Has Got Your Back by Gabrielle Bernstein. You may have read that one as well. And in that, she talked very much about these signs. There's a whole chapter on signs, and she used owls as signs for finding her home. And she was on a fertility journey, and turkeys walked into her garden, and they're the sign of fertility and family. And I started to really latch onto this and think, am I going to be okay? Am I going to be okay? And I started to play with the signs. But it was really when a friend of mine said to me, she said, have you ever thought about going to see a clairvoyant? After my mum had died, she died by this point. I was like, no, I'm a bit scared about that. I'm not entirely sure I believe in it. And she goes, well, why don't you just go and try? If you don't believe in it, just go and try. And she introduced me to a clairvoyant, and I booked an appointment, and I was very, very nervous. I wasn't really quite sure what I was going to find or what I expected from this experience. But I went along anyway with an open mind and my notebook, ever there with a student and a learning. And I got to the front door of this little house, and I knocked on the door, and it had been quite a long journey. And I knocked on the door, and a little lady opened the door, and she said, she's waiting for you. She's here, and she wants you to know that she's washed her hair and she's put in her teeth, and she can't wait to talk to you. And at that moment, I started to cry, and I started to believe, because this woman didn't know who I was. I didn't give her my full name. I hadn't said anything about why I was coming. And I had never told a soul that when my mum was dying, that I felt mortified that she was lying there with greasy hair and without her teeth in. Because those are the two things that my mum was adamant. She always had to have her teeth in, and she always had to look respectful. And I'd never told a soul about that. Never. And it was in that moment I believed that there was something magical, and that we could connect to the spirit world and the energies of people who had gone before. And I walked in, and I had that reading, and so much came out. Was it reading? This experience. And it was the most incredible experience, because this lady explained everything about my mum, what she looked like. She said she's actually sat here with an old gentleman with a cap. And that was my granddad. My dad's dad got on very, very well with my mum, and they were always in the garden. They were always laughing. They were always joking. And I had wonderful connections, and my mum told me that everything was going to be okay, and she was there for me. She was always around me, and she would always help me. And it was the most amazing experience. So from that moment onwards, I believed, and my cynicism went, that you can connect, that you can speak, you can call on the energies of angels or people who've gone before. I started to believe in everything that I'd read in The Secret, and The Universe Has Got Your Back, about asking for signs from something bigger than us, whether it's a person, the universe, anything. And I wanted to share that story with you, because if you've lost someone, then I hope that this can give you some peace, whether it means that you want to go and speak to your own clairvoyant, or whether you just want to start to open your mind to believing that they are there, that their energies will always be there for you. And I wanted to share with you a couple of other stories to show how I use that. Following that, I use this all the time. I can feel my mum. In some of the hardest times of my life, I could close my eyes and I could feel her lying in the bed next to me, holding my hand. Weirdest thing, I could smell her perfume. She wasn't even there. And I could just sense her, and I can sense her, she's there. Sometimes I'll turn on the radio and I'm thinking of her and her favourite song, We Have All the Time in the World. She used to love that song. Or an Elvis Presley, and I'd be like, oh, mum's with me. She's here. She's around. She's just letting me know that she's here. But there were a couple of two key incidents I wanted to share with you to help you deepen your belief and your conviction that this can work for you if this is something that you want to work on. Shortly after that, maybe a year later, we were moving house, and we had to move the boys from school, and we'd been around a few schools, and the boys didn't like any of them. They were just like, Mummy, we don't like it here, we don't want to move school here. And we were down to one last school. And I was like, oh, for heaven's sake, Mum, could you let me know that this is the right school? Is this the right school? Can you let me know if this is the one? And my mum came to me in a meditation just after she died, with a coach that I was working on at the time. She came to me as a kingfisher, and really interestingly enough, I have lots of kingfishers around the house. One of my clients actually, I shared this story with a client, and they sent me this gorgeous mug, kingfishers. I get kingfishers sent all the time because of my mum, especially after she died, and I shared that story. And we were driving up the A1 to go to this school, this final school that was our last chance saloon. And as I was pulling onto the motorway and asking this question, this ginormous articulated lorry, you know, the really, really big ones, pulled off the slipway and onto the motorway next to me. It was big and white, and it had the most enormous word, kingfisher, along the side, and this bird flying along it. And I was like, oh my goodness. I was like, it's Mum. She's here. And no joke, she stayed with me all the way and pulled off at exactly the same junction as we were pulling off. It was almost like she was guiding me to this school. And we got to the school, and the boys loved it, and that's where they ended up going. So I was like, she knew, she was telling me, yes, this is where you're going. And I got so much comfort from the recognition that she knew, and she gave me comfort, because she's not here in the real world for me to ring up like I can ring my dad and get comfort and support and guidance. And this is how I choose to connect with her as I continue on my life with her. I know she's there. I just have to ask for the sign. Show me a sign, Mum. Is everything going to be okay? Is this the right way? Show me. And I open my mind, and it has happened so many times. I remember when I was wondering whether it was the right thing to do to continue in my relationship. And I was like, Mum, is this the right thing to do? My heart was breaking, and I pulled around the corner, and there was the most amazing carved kingfisher diving. It was like a diving kingfisher, and it was enormous. And she was like, yes, this is the way. And I was like, okay, this is the way. This is great. And the most recent one I love was just the other week. There were a few things that were happening in my personal life, and I was like, Mum, is everything going to be all right? Can you just give me the reassurance that everything is going to be okay? Can you just tell me? We were driving at the time, and I silently asked this question, Mum, can you let me know? I thought there's going to be no kingfishers anywhere around. We're driving on in the middle of nowhere along this lane. The next car that drove towards us, it was a black Audi with the number plate ANN11E. I was like, you are shitting me. My mum's name was Annie. It was just like, oh God, it still makes me feel really tearful. It was just like this car with her name was just like, yes, you're going to be fine, and everything is going to be fine. And just so much, I can tell you, I have hundreds of stories like this, kingfishers or her name, and she's always there. And it brings me so much peace and this contentment that I'm talking about, you know, just little moments of sparks of joy and happiness and contentment to know that I know that she's always there and she's always listening for me. So for you, if you've lost anyone and they've passed on to another realm, and you are open to the fact that they are there, that their energy, their physicality may not be there, but their energy is, all you need to do is open your mind to be willing to receive messages and signs from them, whether that be in a car number plate, a sign on, you know, a lorry. It can be anything, a song on the radio, and they will let you know that they are there, willing you on, and it can give you so much peace and connection to something that has gone. So I share that with you for you to be able to use that in your life. If you feel like you need to connect with someone who's gone, they're always going to be showing you the way. I had a wonderful client once. Her mum was called Rose, and we used something similar. So her connection to her mum was roses and the pink sky, rose skies we called them. And she found so much peace in just being able to connect. Every time that there's a pink sky, it's like Nanny Rose is watching. And she's got pictures of roses. She commemorated her mum by buying a painting with beautiful roses on them. There are so many little ways that you can use in order to honour your grief and to connect with those who have gone, just to bring you that level of contentment. In fact, you can use signs in anything, absolutely anything you want. This is my sign from my mum, but I use them all the time. I'm open to it. I've lost my cynicism and just found this beautiful contentment. And James, I was explaining this to James, my husband, the other day, and I think he's still a little bit of a cynic sometimes, but he just said, you know, well, you'll find comfort in anything. But do you? I think you can. But I think there's also some bit of magic. You know, how did that kingfisher lorry come and drive past me? You know, how did anyone know that I was going to ask that question, and then the car with the number plate Annie come up, you know, as I was asking that question? One of the ways that I love to use this sign as well is just in anything, whether it's connecting with my mum or not. But I remember in April when I was thinking, you know, something was wrong, and I was asking myself, I've really felt called to come back to do the happiness work, the life coaching work, the health coaching work, to support people with their happiness, to support people with their mental health, their holistic health, and to help them feel happy and find joy again in their life. And I was lying there, it was about 3 o'clock in the morning, as I couldn't sleep, it was on my mind. And I said, oh, for heaven's sake, give me a sign. Is this what I should be doing? Is this what I should be prioritising? Is this where I should be focusing all my time and attention and my mentorship and my coaching work? And I let go and I handed it over to the universe, and I trusted in the fact that I would be given the sign. And sometimes it can happen quickly, just like the kingfisher has shown with my mum, and sometimes it can take a little bit longer, but it's always there. But this one was immediate, absolutely immediate. Now, you shouldn't do what I do. There's something my mum always says, don't do what I do, just do what I say. But it was 3 o'clock in the morning and I couldn't sleep, and I was like, right, okay. And I went on to Instagram. Shouldn't do that at 3 o'clock in the morning. Really, it's very bad for your mental health. But I was like, I'm going to go onto Instagram and listen to something to help me sleep. And the first thing that came up on my grid as I opened it up was one of my favourite teachers. She's Kirsty Gallagher. If you follow her, she's all about moonology and the lunar cycles and everything. And the first square that I saw, I mean, I'm not going to shit you on this one. It was just incredible. It took my breath away. It said, if you're looking for a signier sign, this is your sign. I was like, oh, this is my sign. This is my sign. I've got to come back to doing health coaching. So it was thanks to Kirsty Gallagher and her post, this is your signier sign, this is it. And it was in that moment I decided that I wanted to relaunch my personal brand, XO Ali Mortimer, and focus more on health, happiness, and everything. So you can use these signs, whether you're a cynic or not. It can give you so much comfort and so much peace and connection and peace and choice in your decisions. So I am in human design, I am a line 3-6. I am here for the trials and the errors, the mistakes and the lessons that those can give you. That's my line 3, and my 6 is a role model, and I love to share stories, and that's why I've shared this story for you, so that you can learn through the experiences that I have had and you can connect with them. So this is your invitation as well. If there is anything that you are struggling with in life, if you are trying to find your happiness, create your happiness, and you're really struggling and you don't know how to find that peace, that connection, that joy, this is what I've been able to do. From the depths of my sadness, my anger, my disgust, my fears, so many things, I was able to allow joy back into my life, and that is what I have navigated this life being able to do and help so many other people do. So this is your invitation to start a conversation with me. If you are in one of those places where it feels like joy is lost, where happiness is hopeless, then please come and find me in my inbox or send me an email, ali@xoalimortimer.com, and let's start that conversation. Let me help you take that first step to recreating joy in your life, finding happiness again, and so that you can live and love your life to be happy, healthy, and free. Find me there. I hope you've enjoyed today's little session on finding that little level of peace and contentment part of happiness if you've lost someone that you love. It has been one of the most transformational experiences that I've been able to do, to tap into this spiritual connection to myself, to my mum, to the energies around me, and let it guide me to creating happiness within me and also around me. Thank you for joining me for today for this week's midweek message. I will be back next week, and I will see you soon. Have a great weekend.